The house never felt like a prize. It was small, 2 bedrooms, faded blue shutters, the kind of place that smelled faintly of old wood and lemon polish. It had belonged to my grandmother, the only person in my childhood who never treated me like an extension of someone else's plan. When she left it to me, my parents called it lucky. When they realized it was legally mine, they called it wasteful. I didn't even get a week to sit in it alone before the conversations started shifting. Not about how I felt, not about what I wanted, just numbers, market value, equity. How it could help the family. At first, I thought I was being dramatic for feeling protective. It was technically a free house. That's what my mother kept repeating. Free, as if that word erased the years my grandmother had spent paying it off alone. Then the real request surfaced. An aunt's son had made a series of bad investments. He needed a reset, a second chance. My house could provide it if I sold it and shared the profit. It's not like you earned it. My father said carefully, be generous. I asked what generous meant. They had numbers prepared. That's when I realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a proposal they assumed I would accept. When I hesitated, the tone changed. My mother leaned back in her chair and said very evenly, stop being selfish. That's a free house. Either share it or you're not my daughter anymore. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't dramatic. It was administrative. As if she were updating my status in the family database. Something in me didn't break. It clarified. I went home that night and sat on the kitchen floor of the inherited house. The refrigerator hummed. The plumbing ticked softly in the walls. I tried to picture selling it for someone else's redemption story. All I felt was tired, not angry, just tired of negotiating for belonging. The next week, I met with a lawyer. Quietly, I brought the deed, the will, every document I had. He looked at everything, then at me, and said, you understand this is entirely yours? I nodded. No one can compel you to sell. Not family, not emotionally, not legally. There it was. The first clean sentence I'd heard in weeks. No one can compel you. I didn't tell my parents about that meeting. I didn't argue again. When they brought up the house, I said, I'm thinking about it. Which wasn't a lie. I thought about what the house represented. My grandmother had bought it after leaving a marriage that minimized her. She once told me, owning your own roof changes how you stand in the world. I didn't need the roof. I needed the standing. So I sold it. Not impulsively, not secretly in the reckless sense. I listed it privately, screened buyers carefully. I chose someone who valued what it was, not someone flipping it, not someone turning it into rental income. I sold it to my former high school literature teacher, a woman who had once pulled me aside after class and told me I wrote like I believed I had to apologize for existing. She had recently retired. She wanted something modest, quiet, close to the park. She cried when she walked through it. The paperwork was clean, funds transferred, title recorded, final. I didn't tell my parents immediately. I let them continue assuming I was still considering options. 3 days later, they called and said they were coming by the house with a realtor to get a professional valuation. They didn't ask if that was okay. They informed me. I almost warned them. Almost. But I realized I had spent my entire life cushioning their expectations, softening impact, absorbing fallout. This time, the paperwork could speak for itself. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. I stood across the street, hands in my coat pockets. I hadn't planned to be there, but I wanted to witness the moment. Not out of cruelty, but out of closure. The realtor walked up first, tablet in hand. My parents followed, confident, possessive. My mother even adjusted the shutters as if she already owned the narrative. She knocked the door open. My teacher stood there, hair pulled back, cardigan sleeves rolled slightly, a mug in her hand. Calm, surprised, yes. There was a pause, the kind that stretches before reality rearranges itself. My father spoke first. We're here to assess the property. She smiled politely. I think you may be mistaken. I purchased this home last week. Silence. My mother laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. Purchased? From who? From the legal owner, she replied. The transfer is complete. The realtor checked her tablet. Her expression shifted. Professional confusion giving way to clarity. I'm seeing a recorded sale, she said carefully. Closed 3 days ago. That was the authority moment, not dramatic, not theatrical, just official, the kind you can't argue with. My mother's voice rose then, not just in volume, but in pitch. She can't sell that without consulting us. The realtor blinked. If she was sole owner? She absolutely can. Sole owner. The screaming came after that. Not words I'll repeat, accusations, betrayal, disrespect. But none of it landed, because for the first time, the argument wasn't happening in a living room. It was happening against recorded documents, county filings, legal signatures. They weren't debating me. They were arguing with reality. My teacher closed the door gently. Not in anger, just in finality. I didn't approach them. They spotted me anyway. My mother crossed the street fast, face flushed. How could you do this to us? I considered the question. I didn't do anything to you, I said. I made a decision about my property. That was supposed to help your family. I felt something settle inside me. Not ice. Not heat. Alignment. You gave me a choice. I said, share it or lose you. Her mouth tightened. I chose. The silence that followed was heavier than the shouting. My father didn't yell. He just looked at me differently, as if recalculating something he had misjudged for years. Control wasn't loud when it shifted. It was administrative. After that day, calls became infrequent. Holidays became conditional. The relationship didn't explode, it thinned. There were no apologies, no reconciliations, just distance. Sometimes I drive past the house. The blue shutters are freshly painted now. There are plants on the porch. It looks lived in. Stable. I don't regret selling it. I regret that it required paperwork to prove I deserved autonomy. But I stand differently now. My grandmother was right. Owning your own roof changes how you stand in the world, even if you decide to give the roof to someone else. What I kept was the standing.